And welcome back. Once again, I am your host, Rhonda Kulch, and I am so glad that you did not move that dial. We are spending all week long talking about empowering women, impactful women, women that are looking to amplify the voices of either themselves and their companies they represent or others that they represent. And we always want to make sure that we are giving a platform to these special ladies. So with us right now, we have Regina Faul. Regina, how are you?
I'm great today. Thanks very much.
I'm so excited that you took the opportunity to chat with us this morning. I know that we didn't have much time to prepare, so I'm so looking forward to learning a little bit more about you. So tell everybody a little bit about Regina and what are you doing today?
Well, today I'm getting ready to finish all the work I have to do before going on a 2-day mini vacation to a family wedding. So it's been a busy day today.
I love it. So how about professionally? Tell us a little bit about who Regina is.
Sure. I'm a lawyer. I've been a lawyer for probably a longer time than anyone wants to know. But I practice employment law, and I represent business owners, businesses, in their relationships with their employees.
I love that. So, for somebody who's listening, who they may not think that an attorney is necessary, tell everybody a little bit about why having an attorney. I don't know if you have people that you're on retainer with, but why is it so important for somebody to have an employment lawyer?
Well, so that's a great question because it's just recently come up in some case law. Employment law is something that is sort of the employers say, hey, I don't need this until I'm in trouble. Well, that's not the truth. The courts have recently said that they were going to assess damages and fines against an employer because even though they did a lot of other things to make sure that they were doing their payroll and their treatment of employees correctly, the one thing they didn't do was talk to an employment lawyer. So they got hit with damages. And I think it's really important to show everyone that I have someone on my side who knows the law and who's going to tell me how I have to act and or what laws I have to follow because they're ever changing and very confusing even to us that do it every day.
It's so important because a lot of times, I speak to business owners and, the thought of them having an attorney, right, it automatically puts them, I think, on the defensive instead of on the offensive, saying I'm looking to do things appropriately and they're looking for the appropriate structure and to make sure that, especially with so many changes, as you're mentioning, that everybody is being protected equally. When somebody comes to you, what are normally the challenges that they are facing?
I do a lot of wage and hour litigation. So an employer has been sued by one of his current or former employees who says, I'm not paid properly. I didn't get paid for overtime or I didn't make the proper wage. And the employer is facing paying that individual for the wages that were perhaps incorrectly paid, double damages. So they're paying the wages and then they're paying damages on the wages. Those are the things that I see a lot of, discrimination, harassment claims, those types of things. And then, the everyday counsel that I do for employers where how do I terminate this employee who isn't doing the right job?
And all of that makes sense. And my question to you now is, it sounds as if a lot of what you are speaking about right now is also related to human resources. So how do you either collaborate or differentiate from an HR firm?
Well, we generally collaborate very well with HR. So I'm like the super HR person, right? You have your HR person who works in your company, and that person does the day-to-day HR, learns what the employees should or shouldn't do, learns how to give benefits to the employees, and then they have reached their capacity, and then they call an employment lawyer. And I say it's like the super HR, right? It's more than the HR person can handle. It's how to apply the law. It's how to differentiate the real nuances of employment law, which are there.
Now, in part of your scope of employment with a company, would you say that sometimes negotiating with the other party is easier? Do you try to avoid litigation?
I try to avoid litigation at all costs, really, because I say to my clients, and I'm fairly straightforward about this, you can spend money on me, and I will absolutely fight for you as hard as I possibly can, because I'm a fighter. But you can spend money on me, or you can spend a lot less money and get out of this case and get back to doing business. I think that's an important thing for an employer to know, is that sometimes you don't want to give in, and it is about principle, but your best bet is to get back to doing business.
Now, if somebody is a new business and they are just starting, walk us through what recommendations you would make for making sure that that company is set up and protected correctly. And I'm not talking about structures such as LLC or S Corp. I'm talking about, making sure that all of the, all the buttons are done, right? Everything has been kind of buttoned up so that they can, I don't want to ever use the word ironclad themselves, but when somebody comes to you, they say, where is your first start with them?
So I would love it if they came to me before they started, because, it's so easy. This is one of the things that I say all the time. It's like, you've known me forever. It's really easy to get an LLC. It's really easy to get a corporation, a certificate of incorporation from the state. They hand it to you and leave you on your own. Then what? So what we've come up with is a new hire checklist, and we give that to our clients and make sure that they're setting themselves up for success, because that's what it's all about. We want them to be successful. So some of the things that they have to consider is getting the proper documentation that the government requires you to get, like an I-9. Then making sure that you have either a time and attendance program on your computer, or you have a timesheet, or you have a time clock that logs everyone's hours. Because the federal law requires all individuals to be paid hourly. There are then exceptions to that. So some people can be paid as not hourly, salaried, but they have to fit within the exceptions under the Fair Labor Standards Act.
Okay.
And if you are paying someone by the hour, you have a responsibility to keep records. So you'd have to have their time and attendance, to know when they're there and when they're not there, what time they start, what time they take a lunch break, what time they take other breaks, and what time they end for the day. That way you can assure that you're going to pay them properly. You would have to also, under New York State law, you would give them something called a wage notice, which is required by the Wage Theft Prevention Act. And that would include, New York State provides a form, which is the easiest way to accomplish that wage notice. And you're telling the employee who you are, what your address is, what your phone number is. You're telling them when you're giving them the form, and then you're telling them what their rate is, when they're being paid, and explaining certain things. If you're taking a tip credit, if you're in the hospitality industry, or if you're taking a meal credit, all those things are right on that piece of paper, and then you give that to that employee. If you don't do that, you can be fined in a litigation up to $5,000.
Oh.
And you are also required to provide an employee with the proper pay notice, which is basically a payroll, but you have to include certain things on that payroll, and they have to be accurate.
How does an employer go about making sure that they can confirm that they've done that, right? Is it something that they could email, or something that the employee has to sign off on? An
employee signs off on it. It should be kept in an employee's payroll personnel file.
Okay. You don't even think about some of these things when you're a small business owner, but it's the little things that can get you into big trouble. And this is why somebody like yourself is so important, especially to the small business owner. Now I know that you are going to also be participating in the Entrepreneur Summit coming up on October 16th in New York City. Give us a little sneak peek on what we should expect.
Well, we're very excited to participate. I've been a partner with Paulina Lopez for several years since this started. I've been on her board of advisors for several years, and she's a good friend. The summit it's going to be phenomenal this year because Paulina doesn't do anything that's not phenomenal. But my firm, where I will be facilitating 3 of my associates from my firm. One associate is an employment lawyer, another is an IP lawyer, and another is a real estate lawyer. And we'll be giving tips on how businesses can scale. And be more, use their brand better, find a brick and mortar space, and also comply with employment laws.
I love it. And if somebody's listening today and they realize, oops, I need help, how does somebody contact you?
They can email me at rfaul, R-F-A-U-L, at phillipsnizer.com.
I love it. Well, thank you so much for joining us today. I know you are getting ready to head out to your little mini vacation. So thank you so much for carving out time for us. It's so important that us women stay together and we help amplify each other's voices. And I'm looking forward to seeing you at the summit.
Well, thank you. I look forward to seeing you too.
You got it. Until next time, stay tuned. We're bringing you our final guest.